two, one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Antinatalist conversation, hangout, group of people conversing. Today, I'm joined once again by Question Mark. I will provide a link to his channel below, so I do ask you to subscribe to his channel. Some fantastic conversations being had there also, and he often streams study and chill sessions where he looks at interesting philosophical matters, not just related to antinatalism. He is into many other related matters like veganism, effective altruism, and such. I'm also joined by WickedEnergy. WickedEnergy is this witty man who haunts the comment sections of YouTube and has often denigrated my good name. But he is fun, and I enjoy his input, and he seems to have an avid interest in ongoing concerns. So it's good to talk to him. Guys, would you like to say hello? Mark, perhaps go first. I know everybody knows you, but yeah, for those that don't.
Yeah, hello everybody. As AO said, I just started adding live streaming to my channel, and sometimes I just chill and hang out and study some various topics in philosophy, and that's been fun. So yeah, that's me.
And WickedEnergy.
Hi, I'm WickedEnergy. I've been heard of antinatalism like maybe a year ago, maybe. I think was it 2019 or maybe it was 2 years ago now, actually. And I just find it an interesting community, and it's nice to chat to some other people. I only usually chat on Sundays, so that's kind of over now. And I'm here. I was checking out Question Mark's stream. He invited me to the ANI Discord, and now I'm here.
Okay, it's interesting. So on a Sunday, you used to hang out with. What did you do on a Sunday? Did you used to talk to people? For those that don't know.
Just the 12 noon thing that you were on. I remember you were chatting to Superhuman Dance, so I would just do that with him on Sunday, going through the flow chart every single Sunday.
Okay.
Just made me feel like I was doing something.
We all have hobbies, I suppose. Some of them, some of them are more interesting than others. So, Mark, do you want to ask anybody any questions or anything?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Front of your mind.
I'm curious, Wicked, how you got introduced into the philosophy. How did you come about it?
Vegan Gains and his girlfriend Jasmine, well, I guess his wife Jasmine, had an interaction with someone at a restaurant, and they had an altercation with this couple or something, and they made a video about it. And that's when I first heard. Jasmine referred to these people as breeders, which is maybe considered a bit derogatory. But Jasmine and Richard didn't want children, and they ended up discussing antinatalism with Superhuman Dance, and that's when I first heard of it.
Okay, interesting.
And then Perspective Philosophy and Superhuman Dance had a discussion as well. And that's when I heard of Perspective Philosophy, and he's a PhD, and he was a very interesting guy, but I thought that some of the arguments in the comment section were interesting. I guess after that, when I was in like text chat, YouTube chat on one of Superhuman Dance's videos, and Superhuman Dance was saying some stuff, and I had some reason, and I was putting out, I can't remember now, but this Final Fantasy guy, he commented, and he was just refuting all my arguments and pointing out how they're fallacious reasoning. That's like an appeal to this, it's like an appeal to that, and Like he just really took me apart in the text chat, and I was like, wow, this guy. There could be something to this, you know. And from there, I asked the superhuman dance guy, I said, well, you know, you seem like a crazy person, but what, uh, what do you, who should I pay attention to in the community? And he mentioned in Mendham, WickedEnergy, and David Benatar. And I watched Sam Harris discussion with David Benatar, and there's few other discussions with David Benatar, and David really knew what he was talking about, and really held his own. And he had, you know, he had kind of academic weight, and it added a lot more credibility to the arguments.
Okay, cool.
Okay. That's quite an introduction to the philosophy. Where do you sit with it now, Wicked? Like, how do you feel about it? And what has it brought to your life, finding out about it?
Well, you know, I see a lot of people, a lot of teen pregnancies. I see a lot of, you know, unplanned pregnancies, that kind of thing. I see, you know, that kind of thing. I've avoided that in my life. And, you know, I just think, gosh, if I had kids, I'm in, you know, I'm not working at the moment, not feeling 100%, you know. And, gosh, I don't think I'd be able to take care of them, you know. And I think in my own life, I think about my parents, you know, and, you know, the upbringing I've had, and you know, my parents weren't very well educated, they weren't very wealthy, you know, that kind of thing. And I mean, my life seems to be, you know, it's pretty enjoyable. You know, I had a lot of laughs with people. I feel like a very lucky man. But some other people have not been so lucky, I think. And I just can't imagine. You know, my mother was a cancer surviving diabetic dialysis patient, and you know, she also had back pain and stuff, and you know, and she died a few years ago of septicemia and internal hemorrhaging caused by two different types of cancer. So I just think, man, that can happen to anybody. You know, that's such a rough go of life. Like that's really just, you know, like, and then I found out, you know, people have like a combination. You know, they've got the arthritis, got the high blood pressure, they got the asthma, they got the diabetes, they got, you know, 4 or 5 illnesses by the time they're like 60. You know, so I mean, nearly everybody's getting a rough go of it. It seems.
Yeah,
AO,
it is the case. That...
I just
Sorry,
I just want to let you know, Elle joined the room.
Yeah, I see that. I suppose I just want to say to Wicked, I'm very sorry that you know, to hear that about your mother. I can't imagine, you know, you're a young man, so it must have been extremely painful to go through all that at such a young age. I know you're nearly 30 or so, isn't that right? You're around that age.
Yeah, 28.
Yeah, I'm sorry you went through
that. So, and yeah, you're right. It does seem that most people have comorbid conditions as they get older. You know, there's not many people out there who escape life without something really fucking them up in some way or other. It's just a matter of time, unfortunately, for most people, for their health to start impacting them negatively. So yeah, it's something I think about. It's something, that I think about, the risk inherent in creating life. I mean, you don't know what you're creating. You don't know what harm will come to that person, health-wise.
I feel like you kind of guarantee that there's going to be like a negative health outcome near the end of your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
I find it's sad.
It's a complete gamble. Oh, by the way, let's not be rude. Let's now say hello to Elle. How would you like to be known, Elle? Will I call you Elle?
Hi, yeah, it's Elle. I'm just trying to plug my phone in because I've just noticed that I haven't got much battery on my phone.
That's
and
okay.
I've just realised that my phone charger is broken, so I'm not going to be able to join in for very long, I don't think.
Right. Okay. Well, so you basically can't charge your phones, so you're kind of fucked for this conversation, right? Okay. How long is? All right. Well, listen. If we lose you at some point, or you can come back another time, maybe next week or whenever we chat again. I suppose we better concentrate on Elle, guys.
Yep, that's fine.
Sure.
She's
And nice
here
to meet
for a
you.
limited time.
So how
Yeah,
many people am I talking to? Who's here?
there's myself, there's Question Mark, and there's a man called WickedEnergy. He's a YouTube commenter. He likes to comment in the YouTube videos and stuff. That's how we kind of linked up. So there's
Okay.
3 of us. Yeah. So I've spoke to you before on Twitter, Elle. So would you like to introduce yourself at all to the others?
It's okay. I've just plugged some headphones in so I can hear you. Introduce myself. Lifelong antinatalist. Before I even knew what antinatalism was, I was quite surprised that it was kind of a philosophy, but pleased. And yeah, just sort of good to talk to other people that that share this quite unusual viewpoint.
Yeah, yeah. So how does it feel? Can I ask just how do you feel in general about reality? I suppose life, the predicament, what humans are.
About reality and what humans are. I'm quite misanthropic. So because there are different arguments for antinatalism, aren't there? There are sort of the altruistic arguments, and then there are the non-altruistic arguments. And mine aren't altruistic. I kind of don't want.
Right.
I don't want anybody to suffer, but then I see what our species are doing to cause suffering in not only ourselves but in other species. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah. It kind of sounds like you don't think people are that nice. You wouldn't want to subject another human to that. I'm with you there. I do worry about, the effect of other people's behavior on people brought into this world, like, possible bullying, the possible oppression, harassment, rape, psychopathic fixation on them, all manner of things, exploitation, wage slavery, all the things that humans have created and humans do. I don't really like a vast portion of humanity. But then I also do personally have the kind of philanthropic thing as well, where I do like people and I do care. And I also, because of I see the world as a deterministic place where there's a cause and effect, I realize that even the monsters, it's not their fault that they're monsters, they didn't choose to be who they are. And that's a terrifying thing, even the people we hate, well, unfortunately, they are just the way they are because of their nature. And again, they didn't choose that. So there is a kind of, you can even stretch the kind of philanthropic kind of, sentiment to the monsters as well, if you like. You can kind of, if you like, have that much empathy that you kind of almost feel sorry for them in a way, because it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're, compelled to do horrible things that we find shocking and frightening and awful. I mean, who in their right mind would choose to do those things, So yeah, I have a little bit of empathy for them, but obviously it's difficult because the lizard brain in me wants to punish them and beat them and eradicate them. But the kind of rational sense in my brain, the kind of intellectual part of my brain thinks, it's not their fault, and maybe we should just separate them from society and keep them in pens or whatever, away from causing harm, because again, they didn't choose to be these harmful beings. It's a very difficult thing, and I like. What do you think, Mark?
No, I agree. Um, yeah, I don't have, you said it well.
Do any of you support the death penalty?
What? No, I don't. There's like practical implications of that in terms of like you know, there's people that have been found innocent and then they get, you know, put to death, and then um the amount of the cost to go through that whole process, uh you know, you can just put them in jail. So I don't know, I'm not in favor of like of the death penalty.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of it because of possible miscarriages of justice, number one.
Yeah, which has happened already. Yeah.
You know, yeah, it does happen. And again, you see some ridiculous cases where there's people with an IQ of like under 50 who, you know, don't know what the hell they're doing, or some person who had like, you know, extreme mental illness or something, or some woman who was severely abused and like killed an abusive partner or something in a kind of, you know, act of psychological trauma. You do see sad cases, and yeah, I'm not for it. What about you, Elle?
It's a difficult one. In terms of suffering, when I mean, it's possibly worse to spend a lifetime in prison. Isn't that potentially more of a punishment than actually ending somebody's life? That's an
Yeah,
interesting
I'd say
Yeah,
so.
question, don't you think?
I've thought, yeah, I've thought about that as well, and I've thought about that as well, and I do kind of agree that, you know, if you were in a kind of environment full of psychopaths, because obviously the general population of the prison is, you know, there's a high propensity of there being a psychopath present in the
Exactly.
population.
Mm,
So yeah, if you're in that kind of environment where there's a lot of violence, bullying, you know, even rape and stuff, there's all manner of horrible shit happens in prison. Intimidation, you know, people who are drug addicts, you know, try and steal off you and stuff. Yeah, there's all manner of stuff, and obviously there's the loneliness. So yeah, it's obviously not a nice place to be.
mm.
So I do agree with you that in a strange kind of way, if they're killed swiftly by some kind of lethal injection or whatever the methods are, I'm not really okay with it. Um, if maybe they're the ones who get the easy way out, you know, because they're not really punished; they're set free.
Exactly,
But
exactly. I used to think that the death penalty was bad because for all the reasons that we've already said, you know, that sort of false imprisonment and that kind of thing. However, I've watched quite a few YouTube videos recently about what the reality of life in prison is, and it sounds like a living hell, literally. Um, and to be quite honest, given that, you know, the continual sort of watching your back and knowing who to trust, and the potential sort of tinderbox situation that anything could kick off at any moment, and there is no let up from this at all, 24/7. It sounds so stressful and horrendous. Death would actually be a release from that suffering.
yeah, I hear that, and I just it's a horrible. I can't imagine being in prison, how horrible it would be, but I suppose metaphorically we're all in prison. We're just in a kind of what would you call it, open prison. You know, reality is a bit of a prison. We're imprisoned in our bodies. We didn't choose our bodies. We didn't choose our we didn't choose our intellectual capacities. And yeah, we're all kind of victims. But yeah, it kind of there's pros and cons to being in a physical prison. You get 3 meals a day. You know, there are obviously you don't have to work. Well, you know you could get lucky and get a nice cellmate or whatever. But I suppose overall your freedoms have been taken away from you. So yeah, I wouldn't want to be there. And what about you, Wicked? Have you got any viewpoint on prison or the death penalty?
You're muted, Wicked.
I guess Wicked has temporarily disappeared. Mark, do you want to ask Elle a question?
Yeah, I kind of want to riff off of your last thing about prison and how even in prison there can be some goods or some good things that, if you get 3 square meals and I don't know. In this so-called life prison, where do you derive goods and pleasures? And what are some, because I know that in antinatalism we talk about the negatives, and I was just curious about where people find the positives in their own personal lives. So I'm just curious about that.
That question is for you, Elle.
It's for everyone, but
as you might disappear at any moment. Yeah. Firstly, Elle.
Well, I guess it depends where you're in prison, doesn't it? Because the documentaries that I'd watched about it were in American prisons, and they just sound absolutely horrendous. I mean, 3 square meals a day, yes, but
sorry, I was just mentioning like as a metaphor for life, like just life in general. Like what do you find? What are the good things that you find in life, for you personally?
Well, because we're social animals, the good things in life are always the connections that you make with people. We're not designed to be isolated, and so it's the connections that you make with other people, good connections that you make with other people, that are the positives, really, aren't they? Do you find?
I'd like to think so.
I hear that.
But I think it varies per person, right?
That it depends on your personality. Some people are introverted and they're quite happy in their own company. Some people have extreme social anxiety and stuff. There are people who are just happy being loners, and I'm kind of jealous of those people. The kind of extreme forms of, obviously I like my own company as well, but I do like to meet people and talk to people. I don't love myself, unfortunately enough to to kind of marry myself and live only with myself. But unfortunately, friendship and striving to connect brings a lot of problems, and that to me is one of the fundamental issues I have with life, is our need to be social, and yet it causes so much pain. It causes so much disappointment, heartbreak, even addiction. Like, we get addicted to people. We have toxic relationships, dysfunctional relationships, and there's all these different things going on. Like, can we trust a person? And then people's motives can be muddy. They can be malevolent towards us, and there's just so much pain inherent in human relationships. And I was thinking about what you said, but I'll be honest with you, there's only so much I can stomach of everybody, and that's including myself. Unfortunately, everybody gets on your nerves eventually in some way or other, and it is about being able to manage that, and that's a very difficult thing to do. Being able to manage people in terms of how they're in your life, creating boundaries and stuff. And there's an element of selfishness in boundaries, because you've got to kind of preserve your own mental health or whatever. But then sometimes those boundaries you put up can negatively affect other people, and it's just a very difficult game.
But isn't the difficulty to form relationships, isn't that one of the reasons that people choose to have children? The reason I say that is because I had a friend in as I was growing up. I had a school friend, and she had a child as early as she could, because she came from a very difficult background. She came from a very neglectful and quite abusive family, and she was desperate to have a child so that there was another human being in her life who needed her and loved her, and that was her sole reason for having that child. So
very selfish, but you know, it is obviously someone who's been psychologically damaged, so we can't be too hard on her.
exactly,
Unfortunately,
you could understand her reasons. You know, she wasn't thinking long term, she was literally thinking in the short term. She desperately needed somebody that would be there for her. So you can kind of
yeah,
see why, you know, given that it's so difficult to connect with someone that you can sort of form a relationship with, and to, you know, you can love and trust. um that's how she solved that problem, by having a child.
Why do you think people in today's society have a difficult time connecting with others? Or at least some people, at least.
well,
um
I think that. Sorry, I'll let Elle speak.
well, no, if you've got a point to make, then you carry on, because I need to give that
Okay,
some
well,
I need to give that some thought.
yeah, I just think we're kind of living in this age nowadays where we have this kind of ability to, you know, connect with others online. And I don't know how, it's obviously good in some ways because you can reach out and find, you know, like-minded people. But unfortunately, there's dangers in that, which I won't, you know, go into too much. But obviously, the danger is we all form these little echo chambers and, you know, stay in our houses and just, you know, don't really open our minds to any other uh, opinions. We kind of seek the kind of easy way through life by finding people who agree with us, and, you know, just sitting in our comfort zone without having to go outside of it. And I think that's dangerous for society, because it creates even more separation, in a bizarre way that, you know, we've never been so more connected, but there's never been the potential for such difference in humanity, because you can really magnify and you know, increase the kind of numbers of people who are opposed to each other, and, you know, you can have more amounts of people in little cliques, and because there's more amounts of people, those peoples can form subcultures and, you know, depend on each other and, you know, use each other for their kind of whatever they need, you know, stimulation, into conversation, I suppose even relationships. So in a kind of way, we're moving away from unity. We're moving more towards separation. But yeah, other than that, you know, we are living in the age of pure narcissism, I suppose, in a way, in that, you know, you go online and it's all people pouting, you know, people showing off their biceps, and everybody's trying to be, you know, America's next model, top model. And it's extremely superficial. There's lots of kind of, I would say, soft porn on some of these Instagram sites and stuff. It's very kind of, it's like instant gratification. People are looking and they're being tempted by the way someone looks, and there's not as much the deepness, the humanity isn't there, I don't think, in a lot of these kind of, in the main, I would say the main amount of these kind of social interactions online are quite superficial. I mean, if you go on TikTok, it's kind of ridiculous. The level of thought that goes on, it's just silliness, really. And it's just, you know, a lot of single mothers lip syncing to crap songs, and I don't know what else is going on. So anyway, I'm rambling, and I'm gonna shut up there because I just think that the internet is doing weird stuff to our ability to connect, and in another kind of way, it's making us feel even more disconnected because we're seeing people put on phony facades. We're seeing people, you know, displaying all the good times and happy times. You know, they're saying life is great and they're smiling, and you know, you think everybody else is having a fantastic time on this hell rock, but then you find out, you know, 6 months later they've killed themselves or something, or they have depression. So what I'm saying is the facade, the front of people are putting out there isn't real, isn't genuine, or it's narcissistic, and it's dangerous. It's making people feel depressed. It's making people feel alienated and different. And there's a lot of work been put into this, but I don't know what the solution is. So I'm just going to shut up now. So Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking.
No, you've hit.
Do you have an opinion?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say you've really hit on something there, haven't you? Though, because we are so hyper connected with so many people, but the level and the quality of that connection is so limited and so superficial. That's the difference. We have the illusion of being connected to people, but it's not the connection that we crave. It's not the connection that we need, because it has no reality to it. It has no depth to it.
Well, you know, what I'll say is I just want to reiterate what I said. Like, yeah, the vast amount of interactions online is extremely superficial. I would say some of my antinatalist connections, I have deep, meaningful connections with them. But the danger, what I'm talking about on a societal level, you'll see people who have like ideologies or philosophies on life, or even theologies, theological thoughts, and they'll like migrate towards those people online. So you might have like LGBT people, BLM people, you know, right-wing people, left-wing people, environmentalists, whatever your interest is, feminism, whatever it is. And people have the ability now to connect with thousands of people, like-minded people online. So whilst the vast majority of interactions online are extremely superficial, there are some very meaningful things going on. But unfortunately, they're going on in a kind of clandestine manner. They're going on in like an echo chambers, hidden from kind of view. So in a way, it's kind of creating subcultures, you know, that aren't interacting with you know, the mainstream. And it's I don't know, like obviously it's important. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying we shouldn't connect with each other, but I'm just saying, as a fatalistic person, as someone who's pessimistic, I worry about that as a kind of impact on humanity as a whole. Like, are we differentiating ourselves even more, moving more and more towards, you know, away from each other? You know, again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just kind of illuminating that what I think. If it makes sense.
Isn't that another reason why people choose to have children? Because
I know you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking another reason that people have children is because obviously there's the kind of relationships that we crave are ones which are physical, and that doesn't necessarily mean sexual. It just means just to be loved by somebody and to be held by someone. And if you bond with a child, that is such a pure relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. In terms of, you know, obviously I remember being a child, and you do love your parents. Well, hopefully. I mean, obviously some people have terrible experiences and stuff, but, you know, obviously in a kind of it's almost like a Stockholm syndrome. You know, you come out and you end up in this world, and there's these people fawning over you, and there's hormones involved. There's oxytocin, and you know, there's all these feelings where, you know, you haven't got verbal capacity, you haven't got verbal reasoning, you haven't even got intellectual ability to any great degree. So you've got these people looking after you and making you feel safe in a way, feeding you and all these things. So yeah, you do kind of fall in love with these people, so to speak. And it is a natural thing to, you know, feel close to your parents. And but it's not chosen. It's not of your own free will. And yeah, but it is a reason people do this to stop the loneliness. And that is something people throw at antinatalists, that, oh, when you get old, you're going to be so lonely because you're not going to have any children or grandchildren coming to see you. How do you feel about that, people, as a kind of common utterance that is kind of used to talk down to antinatalists? Mark?
I know plenty of people with big families that their families don't come to see them near the end of their life. So I don't think it matters that you have these genetic connections with people. I think that connection, with even with or without that blood connection matters. So I know people with strong friendship connections, that their friends will come see them near the end of the life. And I think that's my goal, is that, you know, I have some strong connections with my friends, and near the end of my life that they'll come see me and I won't die alone.
Can I ask what age range you are? Not specifically how old you are, but
I'm 35.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because I think these feelings become more real the older you get. You know, we change as we get older. We face our mortality. You know, we can actually see that we're not going to live forever. I think it does start to change your viewpoint. The reason I say that is because when I was in my 30s, I didn't think about it. But now I'm later in my life, I think, yeah, he's going to look after me. And I do think that. I don't regret not having children, but I do start to wonder and worry about, not that I won't have friends, but who is going to care for me and who's going to make sure that I'm cared for in, you know, in a hospital or in a hospice, or, you know, who's going to advocate for me, I think, you know.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, and that's why I think it's important for antinatalists to try and build up strong friendship bases and even have relationships, if they can. I mean, like a romantic relationship. You know, try and get people into their lives who they can look after, and it's reciprocated. You know, it's kind of, that's a wonderful thing when there's no like blood, but yet people care deeply about each other. I think that's beautiful. You know, because it's chosen. It's almost like the purest form of you know, love, I suppose, when people choose to do it. So it is something maybe antinatalists have to think about, you know, and prepare for is old age. But you know, if you live in the West, you know, there is an element of social care, and if you've paid into the system, and even if you're disabled, there is hopefully something in your country to help you. And I've been in the hospital before. Like I remember years ago, I was in an accident, and I was in hospital with broken bones and stuff. And I was lying in bed, and there was this man. I was in this little ward, right, mini ward, because the hospital was so jam packed with you know, patients that we were moved to this kind of side ward. And I'll never forget it, because there was this old man, and he was very old, and he was in absolute agony. He had family, you know, but they're working, and they used to very, very, very rarely come in to see him. But he used to be crying out in agony and pain, and he was scared shitless. And you know, he had his catarrh on, so he's peeing into a bag, and he had a kind of colostomy bag or something, you know, where they poop into a bag as well. and he could barely move, and he was always yelling out with pain. I don't know what was wrong with the man, but that scared the shit out of me. He was quite an old man, very old man, but he kind of lost his mind a bit, was in extreme physical pain, and he was crying out for help. And the nurses were ignoring him half the time because they were overworked and stuff. And, you know, I didn't particularly like those nurses. I do generally have a lot of respect for nurses, because I think anybody who chooses to do that job, you know, has to be highly commended for the most part, if they're doing it for kind of reasons where they want to look after people. I mean, it's wonderful that we have people who choose to do that. And unfortunately, they're not paid enough, you know, for what they do. But yeah, all I'm saying is the man didn't have a great time. He was having a terrible time, and he had family. So there's no guarantee that just because you have family that, you know, it's going to be okay, or that everything's going to be hunky-dory. And the other thing is, you know, you're just kicking the problem to someone else, because if you have children and you're worried about, oh, I'm worried that because I don't have children, I might be lonely when I die, and you know, I might have a terrible time alone, my bed sit or whatever it is. Well, all you're doing is passing this potential problem to somebody else when you have a child, because the same shit could happen to them, you know? So if this is the way you're thinking, well, what is it really an act of love for you to create someone who then has to face that same possible, you know, dilemma and problem? I mean, the fact that you're thinking about this as an issue, and then you're creating somebody who may well have to experience that themselves, it's not an act of love. It's not a good thing to create them, is it?
Absolutely, it's an act of fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, you're back. Wow.
Yeah, sorry, man. Sorry. I didn't mean to go there. It's my
well,
dad.
I suppose it is good. It is Good Friday, and people do go missing on Good Friday and don't come back for a few days. So, you know, it's allowed.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My dad got a text message. He was spending time with someone, and they've got the coronavirus. You know, and he was spending time with them, so he's gonna have to go get tested. And we were talking about it.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I hope everything's okay. By the way, this has been recorded. You do know that, folks. Yeah.
Sure.
And it will go on the channel. Yeah. Coronavirus. Well, we didn't talk about that, but not a nice way to go. But is there any nice way to go? What's your feelings, folks, on the coronavirus and the measures being put in place to try and prevent its spread amongst humans? Elle, would you like to go first, seeing as you're in danger of disappearing at any moment?
Yeah, I was thinking I'm gonna have to go very soon, I think. I don't really have any views on coronavirus, I don't think. Sorry.
That's okay. Wicked.
Actually, before you go, like, can I ask a couple of questions to Elle?
Sure.
Yeah.
So you were a lifelong antinatalist, but how did you find out about the philosophy itself, like the term and popular arguments for it?
Do you know what? I don't actually remember how I discovered it. May have been on YouTube. I find most things on YouTube. I honestly can't remember even how long ago I discovered that this is a philosophy. But as soon as I heard about it, I thought, oh yeah, that describes how I feel about things, you know.
And how do you feel about the other schools of thought within the anti-procreative umbrella, like the child-free movement or other movements that are sort of talking about procreation?
How do I feel about them?
Do you have any opinions on them?
Like child-free. They don't necessarily say that creating life is selfish or is morally wrong. like child-free people just celebrate not having children. So how do you feel about that?
So, I mean, I must admit, I don't know anything about the child-free movement, but are they saying that they are child-free for selfish reasons, that they just don't want children and they prefer life without children, or what's their reasoning?
From what I gather, it's yeah, they just want the freedom to the one good thing about that movement is that they're pushing against traditional gender roles, and you know, they want their choice of being child free respected, and the advantages of living a child free life articulated as well. So to offer alternative choices. But what about like the voluntary human extinction movement, or have you heard of like what else is there, like Effelism, or I don't know, is there, what else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing some others.
That's more or less it, I suppose. That's more or less it. Have you heard of Effelism, Elle, where people talk about wanting to end all life on the planet, like basically, you know, end all animal life, end all human life?
Yeah, the whole sort of
something, yeah. The red button argument. Yeah,
I was going to say the whole red button argument. Yeah, I mean, if I had a red button, I would press it. Let's put it that way, because I see I worry about so many things. I just have to see sort of, you know, the life surrounding me in my own garden, and I worry about it. I worry about them all, and I just would like to put an end to all of that suffering, you know, just sort of prevent any suffering from happening. So I absolutely would press the red button, no doubt about it.
Okay, but so there's the, like, how do you follow like these types of groups, or is it just mostly the antinatalism groups that you follow?
I don't really follow any groups. It's just
okay.
it's just a view that I have, and
yeah.
I'm interested in it. I'm not it's not a big part of my life.
What is a big part of your life?
Getting through the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just getting through the day.
And what sort of hobbies do you have? What sort of things, other than we mentioned like the benefit of connection, is there into reading, movies, something?
I tell you that the main thing in my life is protecting the life around me. That's what preoccupies me. I have a garden which is teeming with life, and that's what gives me pleasure. I feed the birds, I protect them, I give them nest materials, I provide a habitat for them. You know, that's what really, it's like a mini nature reserve.
Yeah.
So that I want the space that I own in this world, on this planet, to be as protective and welcoming as it can be. So, and that's what gives me pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you know, try to help wildlife as and when I can, but you know, I can't help but worry. Like, like, would I be better off, you know, paving over my garden, you know, preventing environment, preventing habitat for any sentient animals, you know, one less place for them to give birth. And that's a terrible thought. You know, it's not a nice thought. It's not nice to have these thoughts. It's not an enjoyable thought to have when you think, oh, you know, that's the problem with reality. Everything you do has a potential negative effect. Like when I'm feeding the birds, you know, I might be creating a monster who will go and kill a few other birds next year during, you know, competition for mating or whatever, or you know, or I might be feeding a bird who'll lay some eggs, and then a cat will come along and chew their heads off or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can
There's
get like a type of
it's so frustrating.
you get like an analysis paralysis of trying to understand all the potential branches of like a butterfly effect of every single thing that you do. But at least you're taking into consideration other non-human animals. And I think that's commendable. Not a lot of people do that.
Right. Yeah. And it is something I think that is a pressing matter, like the suffering of wild animals. I spoke about this before. But, you know, the fact that, you know, basically chimpanzees are our cousins. You know, I mean, they have this kind of minuscule difference in their DNA to us. I think it's less than 2% or something. And how the fuck can we live in a world where we know that they're like feeding the crap out of each other? They're so strong they can rip each other's heads off and limbs off, and they do that. They're a murderous species. They gang up on each other. They bully each other. They're really, really horrible to each other. And I'm not blaming them for that, because obviously it's not their fault. That's just the way this fucker called nature created them. Yeah, it's something I feel very strongly about. We should be trying to help these animals, you know, out of their plight, because even the fucking like alpha males, even like the silverbacks in gorillas, and even the alpha males in some of these places, they eventually get beaten down and chewed up, and you know, they get cancer, they get all these horrible problems as well. So there's no winners in nature. So it is something I feel we do have to find a solution to. But I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what the answer is. Ethicalism sounds like the answer, but the problem is, for me, is the consent of other human beings. Like, you just cannot get that, and to me, that's why it falls. You can't get human beings to agree to stop breeding, let alone, you know, annihilate the ones who won't agree. So, and I don't think we should do that, you know. So that's why it fails for me. But I do think we should be pushing animal suffering in the wild, and I don't know how we'll get rid of that. I don't know if we'll ever be able to have a situation where you know, we limit the existence of carnivores, for example, because even that won't solve anything, because there'll still be, you know, starvation and stuff, and you know there'll still be explosions in population with more herbivores, for example, to get cancer, or you know, to get injured, or to get like hurt themselves in their mating kind of struggles, you know, during, you know, rutting season or whatever for deer, etc. So I don't know what the answer is. All I know is it's hellish.
Elle, how did you find Antinatalist Outreach's channel?
That's a good question. I have no idea how I discovered it, or even when. Can you even remember how long ago it would have been when I discovered you?
I do remember you follow me on Twitter, but I didn't figure out that you're somebody who commented on my channel until like a long time after that. And I think it's because you called yourself Elle on both of them.
Yes, but I found
I believe
you on YouTube.
You made I can't remember. Yeah, you did, but you made a comment, kind of. I suppose it was disagreeing with me on something, or you know, I can't remember what it was, but you made this kind of really quite angry comment, actually. And I think I replied to it, and it made me like, oh, I'm going to reply to that. And I think I made an upload replying to it. And yeah, I think from that, you contacted me on Twitter.
I think
I can't remember what it was about.
I remember in your reply video, you pretty much said, fuck you. Am I allowed to say that? I just did.
Well, you just did, but that's very unparliamentary language, and yeah. I don't know. Do you remember what it was I was saying F you about? Because I can't remember.
I can't remember. It made me laugh. I remember that.
Well, there you go. See, even in animosity, friendships can be born. So
exactly,
that's good.
Exactly.
all is not lost. But all is not lost from speaking your truth. All is not lost from having, you know, strong opinions.
that was when I thought, yeah, I like this guy. He's got a good sense of humor. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd like to see you two talking, Wicked and Elle. And I'd like to sit back and be lazy and just listen to you guys. So, would you like to talk to each other? Wicked, ask Elle a question, anything that pops up.
Just one quick
chat
question
for a bit, and we'll butt in.
One quick question, because I am going to have to go, because I'm going to have to try and fix my my phone charger so that my phone doesn't die completely.
All right. Okay. Well,
it sounds
like Wicked is gone.
No,
all right.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Can you
did
hear
you
me?
have that question?
Do you have any questions for Elle? Wicked?
Well, I mean, not really. What do you think that antinatalism will become more and more popular in the future?
It's so alien to most people. I can't really. I think things would have to change quite a lot for people to accept it as a philosophy.
Sure,
that's an interesting question. I mean, what would have to change to make it a more palatable philosophy, do you think? This is a question to all of you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the presentation, like, I mean, some of the presentation from like Commendum or Superhuman Dance is very aggressive, and that can be necessary, but I guess more like memes and comic books and more integration in media and films and stuff like what River Films has done on her channel. I guess maybe more of that, more media.
Yeah, it would be good if people, presented their stuff in a more palatable way for the masses. But unfortunately, most people are morons, so it's difficult to know what the fuck to say. It really is difficult, isn't it? But it's a bit like what we were talking about earlier. If you are yourself, you will attract people. So the more people we get into it, and the more people are themselves, hopefully they'll attract others just by being themselves. I don't know, but that's the hope. What about you, Mark? Have you got any answers for Wicked's question?
I don't know if I have a good opinion on this. I'm quite critical of the antinatalism movement or community in general. I think about like creates like or attracts like, and if it's a lot of misanthropic attitudes without the without the philosophy in there, acknowledging the hurt of others. If it's just like, I hate humans, or I hate babies, and I hate parents, and I want to promote that idea, I think that could be quite toxic. And I would appeal to people to look towards their compassion, their empathy, and sympathize with others, and recognize that we're all in this hell together, and try to mitigate the suffering that we all face. So it's an appeal to kindness, to just try and be freaking kind to each other.
Do you think it'll be worthwhile, like, differentiating yourself then even more, like maybe calling yourself a philanthropic antinatalist anytime people ask you, like, should I call myself philanthropic antinatalist?
Oh, dude,
do you think that?
I've tried to call myself a sentiocentric, Benitarian, philanthropic antinatalist. Nobody knows what that means. Like unless you,
unless say positive antinatalist.
What's that?
Just say positive antinatalism. If you have negative utilitarianism, have positive antinatalism.
I don't know.
This is the thing.
It's complicated.
Is there a problem with the word? I don't know. I think the word's okay, but do you think we need to develop a term specifically to kind of elaborate what you mean, Mark, like that? It's about love. It's about compassion, empathy. No.
I don't know. We keep creating new terms. I don't know if that's going to help or not. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the solution. I just noticed that, there's, I just would like to see more open dialogue and compassionate, non-violent communication between people. But maybe I'm being a hippie or something.
Well, Mark, I think you've hit on a really good point. Actually, there's just two things I'd like to say before I go. One thing is that, as I say, I think it's fear that makes people want to have children, as I say, because they want to have somebody during their everyday life that they feel that connected to and safe with and supported by. So following from your point, I think as a society, we just need to get better at creating a family unit, but without having a family, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that we connect with other people who are already living and get that sense of community and safety and security and trust. So we don't need to have children. And then the other main fear is when we get old or when we get ill or when we get towards the end of our life, to know that there will be somebody there for us. And if we can somehow, as a society, assuage those fears for each other, then the need to have children will be less, if you see what I mean, because we won't need to have a child to fulfill those. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's a great point. It reminds me of Conundrum's video.
It sounds like we need to.
Sorry, go on.
It sounds like we need to, as antinatalists, if we have the ability to. It sounds like we need to pull our sleeves up in society and try and fix these areas that will help us in our goals. So make sure that the rights of the elderly and the vulnerable are being looked into and recognized as important. So maybe that's something we should advocate for more. It's a very good point, Al. Sorry, Wicked.
I'm going to have to go anyway. Okay, guys, but it's been great talking.
It was nice talking to you.
You too. Bye, Elle.
Hopefully talk to you again.
Bye now.
See ya.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
What was I saying about
Wicked? You were saying something.
Did a video. Oh, Conundrum did a video recently in response to Gary, which is we should help the poor, we should help people, and that reduces the amount that they reproduce, and that's true across a bunch of countries that he gave examples for. In the video, his response to Gary, I don't know if you guys saw that.
I saw that. It was a while ago, but I saw that. I thought
it's similar to what Elle was
saying. Good point. Yeah.
Well, it is true. I mean, if you help, if you do help the poor, you give them access to funds, so they're not living hand to mouth. They're not worried where their next meal is coming from. If you give them a standard of living, well, then they can work on other matters like education, and that obviously brings benefits to society as a whole. And also, it's clearly shown time and time again that in developed countries where women are educated, the birth rate is dropping. So obviously, very important. Sorry, Wicked, you were going to say?
Oh no, I was just like the term non-violent communication. I mean, that's such an important thing that I've just discovered recently, and I haven't really been working enough on that. But that's an awesome thing. I need to check out that book. I think it's Michael Rosenberg. Is that it, Mer?
I forgot the name.
I haven't heard of this. It sounds interesting. So, non-violent communication.
Can
either of you briefly describe what that entails?
Well, normally when we communicate, we don't communicate our needs. You know, we end up in arguments. We communicate our emotion and our anger and rage and that kind of thing. And we don't communicate in a way that helps deal with the underlying issues that upset people in the first place. And we end up kind of driving a wedge between each other. And because we don't talk about things, we don't really get a lot of truths out there, you know. That would simple conversations could really dramatically improve our lives.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of conversations on important matters deteriorate into point scoring. But I don't know how that can ever be remediated when people do have opposing views. People do have, you know, psychologies compelling them to think in certain ways, and sometimes they think in such ways that they find other people's ways detestable or even, you know, dangerous. So it's again, it's a beautiful notion that, you know, we should aspire to these things, but, you know, unfortunately, I see it as failing. When you go on Twitter, when you go online, when you go on social media, you see the way humans behave to each other with opposing views. It's deplorable.
Well,
but again, it's not. Sorry. I'm not saying we shouldn't aspire to that. I'm not saying we shouldn't aspire to that, and that is good, and it is something that maybe, you know, right-minded people have to lead the way and say, yeah, I'm gonna, you know, talk in a non-violent way or non-threatening way. I'm going to try and put my points across in a way that's not going to hurt or intimidate people. It's a big task. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, I wasn't sure if you were having like feeling defeated in the goal of doing that, but like that's something that I'm happy that I can dialogue with people that I feel are dangerous. Like I feel like their ideas can be dangerous. For example, I think it's dangerous for people to, if you actively try to, or you hold the position that, you know, gay people shouldn't be married, or that, I don't know, abortion shouldn't be legalized, medical assistance in dying shouldn't happen, or if you're against pro-mortalism or for pro-mortalism, or if you're an antinatalist, or if you're an ethicist, and so like I can go on and on and on. But we should, like, when I think about all the conversations I've had those conversations with a whole array of people, and at the end of the day, I can still continue that dialogue forward without just shutting them down and not finding that communicative bridge. So I feel like that's an important thing to facilitate and to aspire to, and I think we need more of that. Personally, at least anecdotally, personally, I'm just tired of people shouting at each other and not having any constructive dialogue. So that's what I've been seeing a lot. Especially, I feel like YouTube kind of encourages that in a weird way.
Yeah,
a spectacle, you know.
Yeah. Very interesting what you just said there, Mark. And yeah, I agree. As I said, it's important that we do lead the way. People do lead the way in communicating in an effective and, you know, in a way that's I suppose morally good. So yeah, I suppose it's an endeavor. It's a worthy cause to be involved in, and I suppose it is holding yourself correctly. I suppose that comes down to philosophical questions as to what is correct.
Yeah, exactly.
What is holding yourself correctly? But it's very complicated, and this is the problem with being human. Things sound, we have these idealistic notions, but they're very complicated. You know, superficially it sounds good, but then when you go into it, it's muddy. You know, it's grey. There's no clear-cut answers for what is the right course of action. And you know, when we are faced with another human being, you know, acting in a certain way towards us, you know, what do we do? You know, if someone is shouting at you, calling you names, insulting you, yes, I believe that the best thing to do online is to act in a calm manner back to them, and you know, not rise to their way of being,
or walk away. I've noticed that some people
or
when
walk away. Yeah, in real life. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
In real life, I would say walk away, but online, you know, you have the benefit of, you know, the protection of, you know, not being in that person's physical vicinity. So I would say, if you can, give a parting shot in terms of leave them with a thought. And it may not be that they will read that thought and think, oh, wow. It may be that others reading it will see the sensibleness of what you're saying. So I would say try your best to leave information there for others to read before you leave. So don't just like, you know, leave on a cliff edge and let them have the last say. Try and leave something, you know, some information there for others to read before you disappear. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I've noticed that in some debate culture on YouTube that some people create a list, or they shame people for walking away. And I don't think there's any shame in walking away, of asserting your boundaries when someone is insulting you and shouting at you or whatever. I think it's a matter of self-respect to say, you've pushed the limit, I'm walking away now. And if you want to continue to engage, then these are the boundaries. And I think that's completely a good thing to do. So that's one thing that I'd like to see a little bit more of within at least in the debate community, instead of shaming people for being whatever, cowards, or just because like someone can outshout someone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's become like a barroom brawl of like drunkards on some of these debate bro kind of channels. You know, it's like, yeah, it's just Neanderthal really, in terms of, well, I don't like to be mean to Neanderthals. I don't quite know what they are like, but basically it's become brutish, you know, and yeah, not pleasant. So yeah, that's I agree with you there.
Well, one thing I wanted to go back on,
hopefully,
sorry, is the thing about echo chambers. Like, you don't want to be in an echo chamber. When I reflect upon all the communities that I've been a part of, say the atheist community or the vegan community or the anti-natalist community, I've noticed that, yeah, like you want to expose yourself to new ideas, but I've noticed that every single group that I've been a part of has a wide array of political leanings or ethical deviations. And I mean, just in the antinatalist world, right? We have so many different schools of thought. And so I don't know, is it possible to have just a pure echo chamber? Because I feel like no matter where you go, you'll always find a diversity of thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that is a good point. There is always some element of friction somewhere. And we as human beings, we're going around with these personalities and these frailties that are, you know, we're like a fruit machine. Like when we're born, you pull the lever and we come out, you don't know what's going to come up on that bar. Is it going to be 3 lemons, or is it going to be a gold bar, a 2 bunch of grapes? You know, you don't know how someone's going to turn out. And although we may have a passion in one area, we might be, you know, we might also have, you know, views or different in other areas. That is, you know, we see that in our community with varying matters. For example, poor people, trans people, disabled people. There are some people who have very strange views to me, you know, and yeah, but I suppose the more you communicate, the more likely it is that you will find those echo chambers. And I kind of do have a few people I talk to regularly that I am somewhat aligned to, but I have to check myself really, and, you know, realize that I should also be talking to others who aren't aligned to me, because that's where change happens.
Yep. Was there any other topics or?
You can.
I think coronavirus.
Yeah, well,
oh yeah, coronavirus.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're asking me about it. I guess I'm not a virologist, so I don't know much about that stuff. I mean, it seems like it wasn't handled very well early on. There's some miscommunication about like it spread from person to person, and it seems like it spread to Europe and spread to other countries around the world, like and I guess people didn't know the basics.
Seems to be, you're right. There seems to be kind of like they seem to give advice one day and then retract it the next day and give the opposite advice. They seem to say things like, "Oh, face masks won't help. Face masks won't help. Face masks are necessary. You need 1 meter. Oh no, you need to stay 2 meters away from each other.
And then
you can meet in groups of 6. Oh no, you can only meet in groups of 1. Yeah.
And then it also, the advice had consequences. So it was like, okay, now wear a mask. Okay, now you can't wear masks because doctors don't have any masks anymore. We're not producing enough protective equipment. So they're given advice and then not producing a situation where you could even follow the advice. Like, there wasn't enough information.
My main worry throughout all of this pandemic has been vulnerable people who perhaps didn't have the intellectual capacity to even understand the instructions. Because bad enough having some kind of learning difficulty without, they could go online and they could read advice, and then not have the gumption to check the next day to see if it's changed. It was very difficult for a lot of people to navigate. It's very difficult for me to navigate policy and see what the hell we were being told to do. So, when you realize the average IQ, not that I'm a fan of IQ, but when you realize the average IQ is 100, that means 50% of people are below that. My God, it's a terrible state of affairs that we can't give a clear, concise message to the populace, as to what is the best course of action to take. I find it terrible, I've also been a bit disappointed with, funny enough, someone threatened to stab me today, guys.
Oh shit!
I went into a cafe, and there was 2 guys in their 20s, and there was an elderly lady behind me, and they weren't wearing masks, and they were kind of the two young guys, and they were kind of standing near her, and they coughing and shouting and creating all kinds of hullabaloo. And I was kind of going out, and I did say, "Look, guys, that you should be wearing masks. I know you might not have it, but just to give people some kind of elderly people, put them at ease, because a lot of people are worried about this, And these guys, "Oh, what the fuck are you going to do about it?" And I did say, "Oh, well, what are you going to do about it?" I was a bit riled up, and then one of them ran into the cafe kitchen to go and get a knife. He said, "I'll show you." And he ran into the kitchen to try and get a knife. And to be honest with you, I left because, I didn't have anything on me. I don't want to get in. I walked away. We talked about this earlier. I walked away. I felt a bit annoyed walking away because I knew physically I could have had him and his friend. But the point is, he was going to get a knife, and I didn't need to be around. I didn't need to put myself into that situation. So. Yeah, I did leave the premises.
It seemed like you were also
what I'm saying is, sorry, say that again. I was thinking about him because he was
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I afterwards when I walked away, I was thinking, you know what, he was like 23 or whatever he was. The brain's not fully formed. He's obviously highly, agitated, hormonal, full of testosterone, and not thinking straight. And he wasn't thinking straight because he acted completely violently and aggressive towards me straight away, But yeah, it's just an example of, unfortunately, of living amongst humans. These things happen when you live amongst humans. You try to have civil interactions. You try to put your point across, and you're met with anger. You can be ridiculed in some circumstances for just giving your opinion. You can be bullied, harassed, isolated, ostracized. All manner of things can happen to you for sharing your opinion. So in that regard, be an antinatalist. Don't play risk. Don't put someone into a world where them having a just trying to have a civilized conversation or put their point across in a civilized manner is going to cause them harm.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about that guy trending you, man. Like that's really uncalled for, you know.
I mean, I've had that happen quite a lot in life, in terms of, like, I remember once I was walking out of McDonald's because I went in to use the toilet, and I walked out there, and there was these two, again, guys in their 20s, and they should have known better. And there was like this homeless guy who was like schizophrenic, sitting outside he was quite, you'd see him quite regularly. He talks to himself and stuff, and he was sitting outside, and he looked very disheveled and stuff. And these guys had him, and they were videoing him with their phone, laughing at him on, I don't know whether it was on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And I did get angry. I walked by, I said, "Put that phone away, you little shit." I said, "You should be trying to help him, not ridicule him." And of course, they got in my face, and they were like, "Oh, what are you saying?" And one of them goes, "You're lucky I'm on license, because I'd fucking do you." Obviously, I said, "Well, what type of license is that? A dog license? Because you're a fucking bitch." It just came out of me. Not a good thing to say. Not a good thing to say at the time. Not a good thing to say at the time, given the kind of circumstances. But I have really got to try and control. Like, I really have got to check myself, because these people are dangerous. These people are, like, they're not the full shilling. They're willing to kill you for nothing. People get stabbed. People get murdered for absolutely fucking nothing. People get life-changing injuries. People get acid thrown in their face. People get, like, they're whatever, like, stabbed in the lungs, stabbed in the stomach. It's a scary fucking world. And I do have to check myself. I do have to say, stop doing that. But unfortunately, with me, I can't help myself when someone is doing something shit to others. I do, unfortunately, I don't know, I just feel instantly triggered. So I do want to say something. I do want to get involved to try and stop it. I don't know what to say about that. It's just very difficult to exist.
Yeah, we need new evidence-based ways to deal with young people who are aggressive. Yeah, and even anyone who's violent.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've uncovered a new vein of conversation here, but the kind of boisterous nature of young men, teenagers and young men, who go around committing random acts of violence, and they don't have the kind of, their brain's not well developed. You can't really blame them, because it is, unfortunately, it's part and parcel of young men. They do terrible things to other human beings. They laugh at them. They point at, because they don't know the kind of consequences of what they're doing. They bully them. They point at the freak, and make the person feel terrible. Call them freak. I don't like that word, but I'm just using that word because that's the type of word they use. They'll attack people. I remember growing up, there were guys who used to just jump out of their car and beat random people up, like random young men, and for a laugh, shit like that. And it happens all over the world. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know, because it doesn't like what. This is a huge issue for me, because obviously we've been around. Homo sapiens have been here for, I don't know, 300,000 years or something. We've apparently been around. And we're still here, and this is still a problem. And we haven't got corporal punishment in schools now, and we're trying to educate children, but bullying is still massive. Apparently there's a lot of sexual assaults and rapes in schools nowadays from other students, in mixed schools and stuff. Apparently it's a thing, and apparently even in single-sex schools, boys are getting raped by other boys. It's fucking awful. Right. But when you see the kind of gratuitous acts of violence in discos, on the street, it's terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. I don't know what it's like in your parts of the world, but I've been around the world a bit, and I've seen, like, big cities and stuff, and, teenage gangs and stuff, and stabbings and hidings, and, people are afraid to walk around at night, because, or even during the day. I don't know what the fucking answer is. Obviously, we need to put more money into policing and stuff, but again, that's another fucking area that needs work as well. And on the matter of policing, I would say in terms of policing, my view is fundamental thing that we need to do in terms of policing is introduce psychometric testing. We need to put a lot of money into it, and we need to analyze who we're accepting for these very important roles. And by that, I mean we need to weed out the people with any kind of antisocial personalities or lack of empathy.
That's a good
these
point.
roles are very, very important. Yeah, I think that's a fundamental thing that should be done in all recruitment of all important, roles, like especially the police, because these people are very, very important, and we do need them. And my hat goes off to anybody who wants to dedicate their life to these dangerous jobs that protect people. I mean, it's a very important role, and fair play to them for doing it. And I'd like to see them getting paid more again, because they don't get paid much. I don't, as a society, we've got it topsy-turvy. Like we're not paying enough money to the people who do the real work, the real, the things that are important.
The essential workers,
police, nurses, the essential workers, teachers, and therefore, what are we attracting? But people who don't really want to do the job. People are doing it as a plan B, plan C, and again, when they get the job, they're frustrated by life. They can't feed themselves properly. They've got loads of bills. Perhaps they've got families they're struggling to feed. And you're creating these agitated, stressful people who, and when a human's stressed, you don't make very good decisions when you're stressed. When you're stressed, you make decisions that are a bit chaotic, and your mind's not calm. You need a calm mind to make good decisions. So we're creating very stressed individuals, and that's why we're getting the problems in society in terms of policing. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
No, that was all good points there about how do we channel that frustration and everything. I mean, there's a lot of sports and stuff people take part in. There's lots of activities that we already have to help alleviate some of that stuff. But just finding at-risk people and getting the resources to them and helping them out, I guess, is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is to instill empathy in young people. How do you think we can do that? I think you kind of need to show them that it sucks to suffer and suffer. But how do you do that?
I mean, just talking to them is one aspect, and getting them to think about, like Mark was talking about, being against gay marriage and being against abortion and all that. I guess in the past I've been kind of like that, and I guess I had this class about, bigotry and stuff like that, and they were just everyday examples, like how people look at young people, how people look at the elderly, how people look at women, how people look at men. And, it's just the class had an effect on me. It's just one class, just one day. The English teacher just talking about this because we're saying, hairdressers, they're all gay, It's kind of really dumb take on things, when you're a teenager. But
so your teacher actually took time to correct your kind of perceptions.
Yeah, kind of biases we had and kind of jokes we were making and stuff, and you just took the time out to actually address
it. That's interesting, because I have to say I never had that really in my education. I never had teachers really standing up for things like that. So it's good to know that people are doing that, and I think it is important. But it's so difficult, and it needs so much. It needs cross sections of society to get involved, and it needs people checking on each other. It needs people talking. It needs we need to talk to young people. Parents need to talk to their kids. Brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles need to talk to people who are at school or in town and see what the hell's going on in their life. And they need to take an interest in it. That's the only way. We need more interaction.
Yeah. Also, if you watch the media, if you watch how a cop is portrayed in a film, he's going around shooting everybody and everything. You know what I mean? That's not how the police should be. You know what I mean? It's how they're portrayed in the film, but because it's exciting and it's high octane. But that's not how we want people to imagine the job of being a police officer, right?
Yeah. Well, you bring up another interesting matter, because I worry a lot about the narratives that are pushed in films and the kind of genres that are out there. I just don't know why some horror movies have to be made, because they're so gory. The stories are, spurious in terms of their, cautionary. What are they offering in terms of a narrative? Oftentimes only like gore and stuff. And yeah, I wonder about, you know, a lot of films, like what effect are they having on society? But I suppose that's such a huge conversation. We would have to talk about that another time.
Yeah. It depends on the film. It's the issue here as well. Like, I mean, there's going to be examples of horror films that have a deeper message, you know, about depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, psychosis, all that kind of stuff that shows up, you know, sleep paralysis. I mean, all that kind of stuff.
I think this is connected to you know, young people and the violence of young people, and, you know, mental health of young people, because it's not happening. We're not protecting young people from, you know, traumatized. We're not protecting them from traumatizing imagery, film, music, computer games. Like, so many young kids are watching like really harmful stuff that is affecting them psychologically, and it is, you know, they haven't got the brains to work out what's right, what's wrong. We really need to do more.
And I mean, this is a comment. Like, I remember recently.
I'm not saying to make them. I'm not saying to keep them stupid. I'm not saying to keep them stupid and naive. I'm just saying for the benefit of society, we need to protect them from these things, because they're not. Their brain isn't able to function properly. Their brain isn't able to deduce what is right and what is wrong. They're getting psychologically affected by it. They're thinking it's kind of normal. They're being desensitized to violence and stuff, you know. So we need. That's why we need to protect them from that stuff.
Yeah, like Pornhub, they're 90% of their videos recently, because I guess they were going to be sued or whatever. But there was a lot of videos up there that shouldn't have been there. You know, there was like videos people uploaded of people who were underage. There was videos up there that are, you know, violence. There's videos up there just of all sorts of crazy stuff, you know, and they ended up deleting it all. But people have been calling for that for a long time. So it's like, that's not really considered a social media website the way YouTube is. But YouTube used to be like that when ISIS used to upload the headings and things. I don't really see it maybe as much now. But, you know, when social media started, like, it was very extreme.
Well, I'm glad that some of that harmful pornography has been removed. You know, and yeah, that's something else that I suppose it's positive that these things people are trying to deal with them. In terms of the harmful pornography, I'm happy to see all that shit removed, and, like, you know, the victims protected, their anonymity, their privacy protected. I think it's terrible that these poor people are, you know, being denigrated in such a way. But, you know, the other stuff you mentioned, it is unfortunate, but it's also happening in the world. So there is this line where, you know, these terrible things, these atrocities that you've mentioned, we can't hide them totally from public eye, because you know, these things are happening, and it is important for humans to know what is happening in the world, so that we can help people, so that we can protect the vulnerable, so that we can protect people who are in danger, and so that we can eradicate you know, evil, if possible.
Yeah, I agree.
So again, but I don't know the ins and outs of it, but we just need to make sure that young people aren't seeing it. Sorry, Mark, we've taken over here. Have you got any opinions on this before we kind of start winding down?
No, I just have to go in a few minutes, so I don't have much. Sorry.
Okay, well, I suppose we can leave it there. I'll just say thanks very much for joining us today. Mark, I'll let you say a little outro, and Wicked, you can say something afterwards.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the chat. I really enjoy these chats and getting to know people and understanding multiple perspectives. And yeah, I always learn something new from these things. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on. You know, it's nice talking to you guys. You know, I like Mark's videos. I watched your Under the Sea video. It's pretty good. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to apologize for going off there for a little bit. I had to go. My dad wanted to talk to me. But yeah, it was nice talking to Elle, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, anytime.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll chat again soon. All right, take care. Bye.